Hey guys, welcome back to the Map to Million channel, and in today's clip I'm going to be providing an update on where I'm at with my small account challenge. I'm going to run through my statistics on MYFXbook, run through any returns that I've made so far, and then I'm going to flip across and I'm going to pick out one of the trades that I've taken in this period and then run through it in form of a trade breakdown. For those of you that didn't watch the first video where I introduced the whole thing and showed you my first weeks of returns, I'll link that video up here. But in short, some advice that I'd given was to ensure that you know when you're ready to take a funded challenge is to take that fee that you were going to pay for a challenge, put it into a live account, and then try and generate profits from that would comply with the objectives that you would need in order to get the funded account. In essence, in an ideal world, you'd be able to make enough profits to pay for a challenge, therefore, in theory, getting it for free and not making any dents into your initial capital, or at least making a good contribution towards it, whether that be 10, 20 or 50%. After some research and looking at the lower price challenges, I decided to go in with a live account of £145. Now, of course, I did quite a lot of research on the broker for this in terms of I only trade indices, so therefore they usually require quite high margin. And in the UK, it's very difficult to get the right amount of leverage to allow you to be able to do this with such a small account. I did go through it in the last video in terms of who I ended up choosing for that. But if you are interested and you do want to check it out, then I have left a link in the description below, and I've also detailed the exact account that I've opened for this small account challenge. Okay, so I'm going to crack straight on, guys, but the usual jargon, if you are enjoying my content and you do want to see some more, please hit that likes up button. It goes a huge way to supporting me and the channel. Make sure you subscribed if you're not already, and make sure you got the alerts turned on so you don't miss when I post my next instalment. Anyway, shameless self-promotion aside, let's crack on and see how I got on in this next patch of this small account challenge. Okay, cool. So what I'm going to try and do some wizardry so that I can show you on my phone here in terms of what my MyFXbook looks like, so I can actually keep some FaceTime with you rather than just sharing the screen. So I'm going to try and put it up sort of here, just so as it displays, just so as you can see what I'm seeing. Now, if I take a look at where I'm at the moment, we've got a gain of just over 19%, which is pretty good. So that's 11% up on the initial week that I had done when I first started logging this journey. You can see some basic stats there in terms of where I did take a bit of drawdown, and that was 1.83% that I'd lost on the drawdown from the initial balance that was there. But overall, I'm pretty satisfied. I'm at £172.73 now from £145 starting balance. As I scroll down, this is neither here nor there, but it just gives you an idea in terms of the sort of percentage growth on these charts. Obviously, you can see where I was sort of in and around the 8% mark after the first week, and obviously I'd taken that loss, and this just shows sort of the growth. There's not been any withdrawals or deposits or anything put in, so you don't think I'm faking the figures and all this sort of stuff. And then as we move along, obviously I've got the stats that's listed for today, this week, this month, this year. It just sort of backs up what we're saying. It's just more out of interest than anything. As you can see, overall, I've taken 9 trades to this point, and I think there's around an 80% win rate on here. And if we take a look at sort of the broader stats there, you can see average win is in at around £4.42, average loss is about £1.61. The other key things there is I've won 75% of longs and 100% of shorts, which is rare for me, like I mentioned in the last video. But obviously, I've only taken 1 short, so good that I won it, but it's not really a fair reflection. Listed best trade here of £8.96, worst trade of £2.84, and overall profit factor at 9.64. And an interesting fact as well, the average hold length of 7.5 hours. Obviously, these figures can get skewed a little bit just because of when I often take partials. So if I am taking partials, sometimes the hold length can be reduced because it could be one play that lasts maybe 18 hours, but I've taken partials maybe at 9 or at 5 or whatever. But either way, overall, is at that profit factor I'm happy with. And then the final thing is the monthly analytics here showing that 19.13% for, as I'm recording this, in June in terms of where I'm at the moment. I've also kind of done a bit of a split in terms of what sort of instruments I've traded throughout the month as well. Obviously, you can see I've got a heavy bias on the Dow or US 30 or whatever you want to call it, and then sort of a bit of a chunk of the FTSE and the S&P as well. Okay, so that gives you a bit of an idea of where I'm at from a performance perspective and returns perspective. Obviously, it's gone pretty well overall, but I would say that I have found it incredibly difficult. It's been very strange going back to such a small account and having to be very rigid, having to sort of make almost like a bespoke risk management strategy, because there comes a point where the lot sizes aren't small enough, if you're wanting sort of a fairly wide stock. So it's about sort of balancing that risk and being able to move forward. At the moment, I'm pretty happy with where I'm going. Obviously, in the first video, I said that my goal is to hit 50% because I think that would be kind of putting my money where my mouth is, in terms of the initial advice that I've been dishing out. And it also goes a long way to contributing towards paying for that challenge. Of course, I am then going to pay for the challenge. I'm going to see if I can complete it all in sort of one round thing to prove whether it's possible for people to do this and whether this was worthy level of advice. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick one of the trades out that I'd taken from this period, and then I'm going to do it as a part of a trade breakdown rather than doing it as a separate video. So if you are interested, I'm going to flip across to the screen now and I'm going to run through one of the trades. Okay, so here we are taking a look at this down trade right here. So what I'm looking at this and with this particular setup, like I wasn't, so I took profit on it. And it wasn't, it wasn't a bad trade, as you've seen there from the, from the breakdown or the screenshot that I've just taken. But the fact of the matter is that with this, I wasn't sure that when we're coming into this piece of price action here, whether we were looking at ranging, sort of within this sort of channel type formation, and then potentially looking to push longer. I wasn't sure. So in this example, I'm not to know at this stage really what we're looking at in terms of the bigger picture, but what I do know is that I would be expecting it for the price to be coming sort of down to here, because that's where this channel has ultimately started. Didn't quite get there on a couple of occasions, but I'd be expecting it to at least get down to this point. Now I know that what I'm aiming for here, that is really I want it to go to the top of the channel, so that's what I'm trying to look for and trying to hope, and that's kind of what I would expect to happen in this area. There are some other things that I need to take into consideration here, and that if we're drawn out, you can see that we're very much in an uptrend here, and then this sort of tapers out with not taking out that high, and then there is an argument that there is this this sort of quite obvious downtrend as we're going back. Oh, it's not very well drawn in, was it? Something along those lines anyway, lower lows, lower highs, and all that jargon. So for me, what I'm looking for is seeing, okay, like yes, I drew this in just because I could see the equivalent point here, so that would have been a valid speculative position and whatnot. But for me, I'm looking for, because I saw that this, when it was, last time when it was on sort of on its way down sort of thing, and how it reacted. So I know that what I'm looking for is some sort of position at around this level, and I'll be looking probably to cover these wicks under here. That's what my feeling is, but I want to see what the price action does, because this could just be sort of, because these are rejections, it could quite easily just have done this, and then all of a sudden we'll get a hover, and then it will suddenly shoot, or start being more constructive back up to this point, which also would have been relevant, but either way I'm just waiting to see what happens. As time goes on, and we can see that the price is getting a bit lower and lower, and it's getting to this point. Now for me, I think, okay, well, if it rejects this, fine, but I also don't want to miss it if it does come down to this level that I want. So for me, that's why I'm looking at plotting this long. So I'm looking at roughly, here, plonking it in the level here. Obviously, there's some slight price discrepancies between obviously the trading view chart and my broker chart, and so on and so forth, and it varies, depending on the day and the week. So it's not going to quite match up exactly, but I'm going based on the price action, how I took the trade. And then what I'm looking at in terms of like where I want to put my stops, obviously I can see the wick that's down here, so what I do is give that a bit of breathing room. Sort of, there's the wick, and then give it a bit of breathing room under here potentially. And then what I'm looking for is targeting the top of that channel here, right? So sort of a 9.87R trade, and that would have been the ideal setup, but I am abundantly aware, like, although I look and may come across as a moron at times, realistically, it can, I am aware that there's a downtrend, but the point is that when you're channeling, no matter what channel you're in, of course, you're going to go up in the channel, then down in the channel, so therefore you're going to have an uptrend and downtrend. Kel surprise. Anyway, so as we look here, that's what I'm really targeting. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't really care. And let's see what happens. Obviously, my bias is on fulfilling the channel. Price comes down, I get triggered into the position. It comes very, very close to stop loss. Bottoms out at this point, which, as you can see, like if you're taking a look at where it is in terms of that wick, it pretty much is completely you're sort of bang on there. You could argue that my stop was slightly tight on this one, but nonetheless, it's still we're still in and we're still ready to keep going. As you see, we're sort of in drawdown for a fair bit there. I mean, obviously this isn't the best entry that I would have taken. What had actually happened was that there was other stuff going on for me at this point, and I was just looking to take a simple entry based on that limit order. There are other sort of breakdowns that I would have looked at and got a tighter entry on this, but nonetheless, this is what we're looking at. So we got this massive surge out, which was good, right? Obviously, what I'm looking at, the first point of restriction, I think, is going to be around here. But the big thing here is obviously looking at this downtrend, which is the biggest concern for me, because this is really in accordance with that downtrend. So the more that I looked at it and the more that the price was behaving, realistically, this was the point that was more like bicycle flip time if we got there. So actually during the trade, I sort of readjusted my expectations there, unless we got a clean breakthrough, but I was really looking for sort of just under this level type thing. And you know, to see if it would fulfill that, you know, with this sort of downtrend philosophy. As we can see, we do get triggered out, and it does go slightly above this line, but we do also get that rejection wick on that level. And also, to me, this is very, very in keeping with that downtrend. So for me, that was where I cashed out. Yeah, I'm not going to hold on to a position that I think that, you know, it's not showing a good sign of a reversal here. This is a very constructive piece of price action, and there is also an area, you know, below here where it could quite easily dip into if we are going into a downtrend. So that is pretty much that. I'm going to hand across to myself and wrap that video up. Okay, so there we go, guys. I'm going to wrap it up for this one. Hope you got something from that trade breakdown, and also, you know, you've enjoyed the update in terms of where I'm at on this small account challenge. It is a bit of a new thing and a strange thing for me to be doing, especially at that size of account. But overall, I am enjoying it. I am going to keep vlogging this as the journey goes on, just because I want it to be completely real in terms of if I do take massive losses and all this sort of stuff, or if I blow the account, I want it to be apparent, because at the end of the day, it was me giving this advice out, and all I'm trying to do is prove whether my advice works as much for myself as it is for you. But if you've enjoyed this video, guys, hit the likes up button as always, but if not, I'll catch you on the next video. Take it easy.